Welcome to InterPartyConflict, the podcast where we answer your questions so you can have the best tabletop gaming experience possible. My name is Gabe.
And I'm Gabe. Shoot. I'm Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff. And today we're going to answer your questions. But first, Jeff.
Yes.
Or Gabe.
You can call me Jeff.
How are you doing today, Jeff?
I'm doing all right. How about you?
I'm doing pretty good. So some stuff happened this week.
Oh, yeah?
It appears that we have an enemy.
Uh-oh.
We have a rival.
Ooh. Who is that? What?
Well, so on SoundCloud, because I have a SoundCloud Pro account or whatever the heck it is, they have this little thing where you can, if someone else has a SoundCloud account, you can see that they listen to your track. So like occasionally I'll go back and I'll look at the previous weeks and see like, oh, okay, you know, these people listen to my track and so on and so on. Well, I noticed a few weeks ago that there was another podcast that listened to a couple of our tracks. And I checked them out, and they have a podcast that is very similar to ours.
Oh.
Same subject matter, same format. I would say, oh, cool, you know, good for them, but there's a problem.
What's that?
They have more listeners than we do.
Oh, no!
I know. So I wanted to just briefly mention Hearty Dice Friends, our bitter rivals from across the Atlantic Ocean, somewhere in the UK. I don't want to betray my ignorance and assume what part of the UK they're from, but
right. We won't say bitter rivals.
Well, yeah. So
welcome, friendly rivals.
Yes. So they've got a few episodes. They started about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I think. I listened to their first few episodes, and they're pretty good. You know, they're just a little bit different than us, but you know, all the luck to them. Or
right, yeah.
I hope maybe they, you know, crash and burn, but who knows? Who can say?
No.
I wish them no ill will. I'm sure I'll send them some questions. Hopefully they'll send us some questions. And
let's bug the crap out of them. I think is the idea. Is what we should do.
That's a good idea. I should find some way to troll them.
Yes. Get a troll war, flame war going.
Yes.
Well, not flame war, but
let's not discount anything.
Okay. Jeff. Or just send in some ridiculous questions for them to answer.
Yes.
All right.
I also want to mention another podcast that also they followed me on SoundCloud just a few days ago as well. This is a podcast called Dicey Tales. Ooh. They are they've been going for a few weeks longer than we have. I think there are maybe like 10 episodes or so. They are an actual play podcast. Okay. So it's a recording of them playing the game. So you can, you know, if you want to just listen to a game, you want to hear the story, you want to get invested in the characters. Let's say you haven't actually played D&D and you want to see what it's like. That's where actual play podcasts come in.
Actually, I never even really thought of it that way. Like, obviously that's really what it's for. It's like, if you're just not familiar with what D&D is, you can listen to somebody else play it.
Yeah.
And, you know, not every group is going to be for you. And it's like podcasts too. It's just like sometimes you just don't like the sound of somebody's voice, or you're not, you know, in with all their in jokes and things like that. It's just not your thing.
Now, for anybody out there, I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to around 50 hours of them a week. I listen to more podcasts than someone who gets paid to listen to podcasts. So that being said, I'm always on the lookout for more podcasts. I've heard a lot of actual play podcasts. In general, I don't like them. And I'll give you some reasons. Now, no offense, but your game, whoever you are out there, the game that you're playing is probably not as interesting to someone on the outside as it is to you. If you're not at the table, there's a large amount of the experience that's lost.
Yeah, there's a disconnect there for sure.
Yeah. And hearing someone else's game going on, you know, that might be good. It might not. I would just say in general, I think people think that their D&D stories are more interesting than they actually are. Now, again, I don't mean to offend anybody. Heck, our entire podcast is based around our gaming experiences. Right. So I would understand if someone felt the same way about me.
Yeah, for sure.
That being said, you know, there's definitely a way to do an actual play podcast. That's good. But another issue is that a lot of people seem to think that you can just, when you make a podcast, you can just hit record, you talk, when you're done, you hit stop, and then you upload it to iTunes. That is not the case.
That's not always going to work.
I put a lot of time into editing this podcast. I put probably twice as much time editing as we do talking. And say what you will about the quality of ours. Like, if you're making any kind of product, you want to edit. You want to take out the stuff that doesn't need to be there and, maybe put in a little bit of extra stuff that does need to be there.
I mean, I can understand because, we're really just doing this for the fun of it.
Well,
And but part of the fun is editing for some people. So it's just you put a lot of time into it, not because you feel like you have to, but in some cases I feel like maybe you feel like you have to because you want to make sure that there's a certain amount of quality to it.
Right.
But and on the other side, you're having fun with it though.
Yeah.
And maybe the fun part, maybe they have no fun in editing. They just like the recording and just throwing it up there,
I suppose.
Or are they just just doing like the shotgun method where you're just like, all right, just throw a bunch of stuff and whatever hits and whatever doesn't, whatever.
Yeah. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is that a lot of podcasts out there could be better, especially a lot of actual play podcasts. It's hard for me to listen to an actual play podcast most of the time because, like I said, just most of them there's just so much dead air and there's people talking over each other and there's a lot of the time the audio quality just is not very good, but
although that audio quality is definitely trickier with a larger group.
Well, yeah, that's definitely true.
Unless you want to spend money on a mic for every single person.
Right. Yeah. But my point is that Dicey Tales is not one of these bad actual play podcasts. It's actually very good. I can tell a lot of work goes into the writing of the adventure. Mm-hmm. The players are enthusiastic. They know what they're doing, and it's very well edited. There's very, very, very little dead air. There's very little out of game talk. And not only that, they put music and sound effects in to enhance the environment. And that's so cool. So they do a great job with that. So once again, Dicey Tales, I want to give them a big thumbs up. If you ever get a chance, give them a listen. And maybe an angry thumbs up at Hardy Dice Friends.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep my eye on them.
Right, yeah. A thumbs up and the I'm watching you yes. Finger thing,
A thumbs up with a flexed bicep.
Right, yes.
So they know that we mean business. All right.
Yeah, best of luck to both of those.
Yes, good luck to both of them. Jeff, do you want to get into the episode?
Sure.
All right. First, we are going to, before we get into questions, we are going to take a small detour to a place that we like to call the Dragon's Hoard. All right. So the item that we're going to be talking about today was submitted by user Thomas through Gmail. And the item that he sent us is the Cube of Patience. It's an item that he got in his game. Him and his friend, the DM, they are fairly new to the game. So I think this was a pretty cool submission from them. Definitely, about as good looking as a lot of the items come up by, other people that played the game for years.
Sure.
So we're going to talk about this item. The Cube of Patience. The Cube of Patience is a 6-sided die. And it is a 6-sided die, but instead of pips, the little, dots or the numbers or whatever, each side has a different sigil on it. Now, of course, this is an audio medium, so I can't exactly describe what these sigils look like. But I can, I'll just refer to them as 1 through 6, I think.
Well, I'll try to provide it a little bit. The first one's kind of like a fern or like those arrows that you see on military guys' shoulders.
Okay, like chevrons.
Is that what they're called?
I think so. Well, a chevron is when it's like two lines that are connected. I'm doing both of us. For anybody out there, we're both doing these charades, hand gestures.
I don't know if you guys can see this, but we're
a chevron is it's like a V. But like a really wide V, if there's several of them in a line. I believe that's a chevron.
Okay. So, hey.
So kind of like that. But
the more you learn.
Yeah. But instead of a V, each of them is there's a cut down the middle. So
right. Yeah. If they were separated in the middle.
Yeah. So two lines pointing downward. I'm still doing the hand gestures. And because I don't want to touch the microphone, I'm holding my hands above my head.
It love this big long description for the one side of a 6-sided die.
All right.
Okay, so what does the first sigil do?
First let me tell you how this thing works.
There you go.
It is a 6-sided die with a unique sigil on each side. When you roll it, which I don't think it says, but I would assume it would be an action. Mm-hmm. When you roll it, a spell is activated depending on the sigil it lands on. So each side has a different effect depending on what it lands on. The die has 6 charges per day. But if you were to roll, because it's random, if you were to roll the same side twice, it would only work the first time.
Okay.
So in fact, he said in his email that one time he was trying to get a specific result and he wasted like 3 charges in a row trying to get the same, because he kept landing on the same other side.
Gotcha.
So you lose a charge if you land on a side that it's already landed on and nothing happens. So the first sigil that Jeff was trying to describe, you roll the die and it grants the roller a 15-foot speed increase and 1 extra action per round for an hour. So a huge bonus, huge benefit.
Yeah.
If you were to roll this, before combat or during combat or whatever, huge benefit.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, similar to a haste spell.
Yeah.
But for an hour, which is a big deal.
Was it 3rd edition haste that was like you got an extra full round?
No, you got, the way it worked was you got a partial action.
Okay.
Which was the same as a standard action, except there were certain things you could only do as a partial action. One of which was a partial charge. A charge was normally a full round action.
Right.
It let you move, double your speed and attack.
Yes.
A partial charge would let you move your speed and attack. You couldn't really abuse a partial charge because it was so rare that you would get a partial action until haste came into play. Because then once you had haste, every round you could do a partial charge and then a full round action. So like you could move an attack and then attack.
Yeah. Which
was for a melee character was very, very broken at higher levels.
That's a big deal.
Yeah. So the first one, a very, very big buff.
Yeah.
I could see people trying to get that result, spending all 6 charges trying to get that one in the hopes of, being very powerful. Now, that being said,
that's for an hour. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, let's say you're a fighter. Fighters get an ability at a fairly low level. The exact level is escaping me, but they get an ability that they can, like, once per encounter or something, they can give themselves an extra action. No. So there's a bit of precedence for this, but this is still much more powerful.
Okay. The next sigil reminds me a lot of pizzelles. I don't know if anybody knows what pizzelles are.
Oh, like the Italian confection?
Yeah. It's imagine a pizzelle maker is kind of like a waffle iron, but they're very thin and they have much more ornate designs in them.
Yes.
Pizzelles, the ingredients, this is going way off, sorry. But I just really like pizzelles.
That's fine, go for it.
My family's Italian, so we have a lot of them. It's the herb or season. It's the seasoning that kind of tastes like black licorice.
Anise?
Yes, that's the stuff.
Yeah.
Yep. And you use anise in the recipe, and it's actually pretty good. And there's also chocolate pizzelles, which are amazing.
Yes, we have a mutual friend, John, who played in. Were you playing with us when John played with us a long time ago? He was. Yeah, that was Jay Zebron campaign.
Yeah, he was playing a shifter. I can't remember.
Yes.
What was the Pudge?
Pudge. Yes, that was his name. Named after Pudge Rodriguez. Yes. And
because he was a tiger.
Yes,
because he was a tiger shifter. That was amazing.
There you go.
Yay, Detroit.
Anyway, so he would
sports.
Woo. He's Italian, and his family, they would often make pizzelles, and he would show up and he would have like a bag of these things. They were just delicious.
So yeah, this sigil looks like a pizzelle or like a ship's wheel, really.
Or I was thinking like a spider's web.
Sure, fine. I guess that would. Wait, is the effect just like spider climb or something?
No. This sigil acts as something of a magic compass.
Oh, it's a compass rose.
Gently pulling the user in the direction of their goal for 1 hour, which is kind of neat, kind of similar to a lot of divination spells that, you, with the spell, you probably you specify what your goal is, and then the spell kind of directs you that way.
And I like that stuff because it's a nice tool. For which we'll get in this later, but it's a nice tool for to help the DM guide the players.
Yes,
And then it's something that reminds me from like Skyrim when they added like there's the divination spell in Skyrim that'll actually put a blue path of energy in your way to tell you like where, like it'll basically like if you're, because I mean there's already a thing on the screen that says like this is the exit on the compass, but at the very least will lead you down the path. So if you're like stuck in a dungeon or something like that, which like is one of those things that people will say like, oh, that's just making it too easy for casual players to play and that sort of thing. I mean, you don't have to use it.
Yeah.
And like, I'm a fairly casual player and like, I don't remember ever using it because I loved getting lost in Skyrim. Like I never did the main quests for the longest time because I was just like too busy, like, you know, just looking all over the place and just going down every cave corridor and everything like that. So I didn't really necessarily need it, but anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a cool little tool because that's something that the player will feel like, yes, this is helping me, and then this is also something a DM can be like, oh, okay, we're going to lead you down this road.
And kind of taking a page from the Pirates of the Caribbean series, I like the idea that maybe it knows what your goal is, even if you don't.
Yeah, I always like that. Yeah, or it's just like, yeah, like. You think you're leading towards the treasure, but what you really want is a nice hot meal, and that's over this way.
Right. All right. So the next sigil, Jeff.
Oh, hold on. I have to get a good look at this one.
I would say this one kind of looks like maybe a little explosion.
Okay.
Kind of.
Yeah, it's kind of got like that energy sort of look to it.
Sort of, and it going by what it does, that kind of fits that a little bit. So this sigil causes the user to instantly emit an electric pulse from their body, dealing 2d6 damage to anyone within a 5-foot radius. Also, if you get hit by that, you have to make a con check or be knocked back 5 feet and prone.
Ooh.
So this one is a little different than most of them because it is kind of explicitly a combat ability.
Oh, right.
But I specify, like I checked with him. And this happens immediately when you roll it. So you would kind of have to be rolling in the middle of combat. Mm. So you could view it as, okay, this is a very situational attack. Or you could view it as this is a way, because this is the cube of patience, remember. Maybe this is trying to teach you not to use this in certain situations. Maybe if you're just rolling this die while the party's at camp trying to, you know, figure out what they want to do or where they want to go. Maybe this is to discourage that because you're rolling it, and then all of a sudden, bam, all your allies get knocked back.
Right, because it says damage to anyone, not to enemies.
Exactly, yeah.
So you can do some damage to you know, your party members.
So I would say maybe this one is kind of like, it's almost like a curse a little bit.
Yeah.
But one that could be used to your advantage if you are clever enough.
Right. Or you're just really lucky enough.
Yeah, maybe.
All right. So the next sigil, it's basically a gear.
It looks a cog.
Yeah, a cog.
A cog with like a little line in the middle of it.
Yeah.
This sigil either heals the user to the nearest half of their maximum HP. So if you're like below half, it heals you to half. If you're above half, it heals you to full. Or it repairs one non-magical item that the user is carrying, and that is the user's choice. So if the user's hurt, he can heal himself. If his armor got destroyed or something, bam, it restores his armor.
Yeah.
So kind of neat utility.
That can be pretty powerful because it'll either bring you up to full or at least to half health. Yeah, the ability to repair non-magical items can be actually really useful.
Yeah,
because there's gonna be a time where you find something broken, and even if it is mundane, like being able to repair it, it's not something that's easily done.
Anytime I am a spellcaster and like, if I can spare it, I really like to take mending because like there are so many times where that could be useful. You know, it's pretty situational, but like that, I'm sure there's a time that could mean life or death.
Mm-hmm. And I could see like a situation where like there's a jammed lock.
Okay.
You can mend a jammed lock or something like that.
Maybe somebody was trying to pick the lock and then their lock pick broke.
Oh, yeah.
Well, just hold the piece up to the lock, cast mending, and now it's not stuck anymore.
Yeah. So a lot of different uses of that. The next sigil, imagine a TIE fighter, but its wings are curved inward.
It's like Vader's TIE fighter.
It's like a TIE interceptor, but less jagged, and then there's a ring around that.
I would say this kind of looks like almost like a targeting reticle. If you were to take if you were to take the vertical line out.
I love how much time we're spending.
I know.
It's fine. No, it's good.
This one's pretty simple. It grants the user a +3 to attack rolls for an hour. Again, a huge, huge benefit.
Yeah.
I could see someone spending all 6 of their uses just trying to get this one.
And is this them? They're playing in 5th edition, aren't they?
5th edition, yeah. So like a +3 is a big deal.
That's a big deal.
So, it pretty powerful. Like I would say personally, if I was introducing this item into one of my campaigns, I would consider this item an artifact because
for sure.
That's powerful. Like the stuff it does is pretty powerful.
Yeah.
Maybe a lesser artifact, but still an artifact.
Yeah, it's risky to use, but it definitely is a little powerful.
Yeah.
The last sigil is it reminds me of the Unreal games.
It does.
The U from the Unreal. Yeah,
Good job.
Or it's like a guy with no head going,
I suppose so. So this is probably the most interesting of the effects. The sigil creates a magical portal through any non-magical surface up to 10 feet thick that lasts for an hour. So it is straight up the holes from Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yeah.
So like
the portable holes that they just stick on the wall.
You get to a wall, you roll this thing, bam, you get thank you for the sound effect, Jeff. You get a passage through that wall. Similar to the portable hole, especially in 4th edition, this is exactly what the portable hole did. In most editions of D&D, the portable hole is basically a bag of holding, but you're not limited by weight. And you, like with most editions, you lay a portable hole on a surface and then it creates a big space through the hole. You can put anything in there as long as it fits within that space. And then you can fold it up and take it with you. Whereas the bag of holding is limited by weight. In 4th edition, however, they did something completely different. And the portable hole was like this. You would set it on a surface. It would create a hole through that surface. I don't know why they chose to do that differently in 4th edition. I don't know, but whatever. So that's what this does. It creates a portal through there. So similar to like the pass wall spell or something.
Able to get through doors, pass through walls, or like maybe even like escape the stomach of a Tarrasque or something.
Ooh. Although if you're rolling dice in this Tarrasque's stomach, I think you've already lost.
Well, like you're down. You're willing to take that chance. Hey, maybe they'll get the explodey one.
Maybe they will. Although if you're inside something's stomach and you knock it 5 feet away, what happens?
That's interesting. Questions for another episode.
Just one more thing I want to say about this. I really like this die this item because I love dice as magic items in D&D.
Yeah, it's neat.
In 3rd edition, in the epic level handbook, there was an epic level artifact, Alidamara's dice. Alidamara was the god of thieves, the god of like bards, the god of deception and gambling and so on. In the epic level handbook, there was an artifact that it was 2 dice. It was 2 6-sided dice. The one side on each of the dice was replaced with Alidamara's symbol, which was like it was like a Harlequin mask.
Yeah, that's right.
And it was similar to the Deck of Many Things, the Deck of Many Things being the artifact where you draw a card and then something very, very good or very, very bad happens. Alidamara's dice was the same thing, except it was a pair of dice that you would roll them. So it was not limited in that the deck of Many Things has only so many cards. Alidamara's dice, in theory, you could roll and roll and roll and roll. And so those ones, you would roll them, then depending on what the dice landed on, something different would happen.
Yeah.
But what I love the most about Alidamara's dice is that when the Epic Level Handbook was first released, if you bought it at like a convention or something, it came with a pair of Alidamara's dice.
Nice.
A physical set of D6s that the one side was replaced with the Alidamara symbol. I would love to get a pair of Alidamara's dice sometime. It's never going to happen because they were limited quantity, and this was like, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago, but that would have been so cool.
It's pretty neat.
Anyway, I also have a soft spot for dice that have other symbols on them. There's a role-playing game. There's a strategy game, a fantasy strategy game that I love called Dragon Dice that
right.
I bought into when it first came out in like 1995. And then it was made by TSR, makers of D&D. And then TSR went bankrupt. They sold Dragon Dice to Wizards of the Coast, and then Wizards of the Coast was just going to like let it lapse because they weren't getting any sales from it. However, a group of fans of the game made their own company specifically to buy that game, and they've been producing it to this day. Yeah. So it's a game that I really like. If you ever get a chance, check it out. I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, it's a fun time.
Yeah, enough talk about dice. We've spent probably half of our episode just on the Dragon's Hoard. But anyway, that has been this week's edition of The Dragon's Hoard. Jeff, would you like to get into questions?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
Okay.
All right. This first question is from Zeus and his Beard from Reddit. How do you deal with a problem player? What are some ideas for resolving issues and or expelling them from the campaign while not severing friendships? This is a tricky one. Gabe and I have talked a lot about this between episodes. First off, like, communication is key when you're dealing with
absolutely
any conflict in general, really.
Any inter-party conflict.
Ding.
Sorry.
What was that? Right, yeah. So communication, talking, bringing up the issue. You had brought this up earlier that like sometimes people just won't realize that they're being an issue, they're being a problem.
I'm sure I feel there have probably been groups I've been in where I was a problem player without realizing it,
right.
Especially in my earlier days, but
you get stuck in your ways and your mannerisms and things like that. And like sometimes things just, you're doing something that you don't realize that that could be a problem for somebody else.
Yeah.
And, so things like that could just, you just want to talk it out for the most part.
Right. First, I would say you should probably make sure exactly what the problem is.
Yeah.
And how big of a problem it is. It might be that it's a problem to one player and not a problem to another. It may be that maybe it was just kind of a temporary thing and maybe you don't have to really intervene. Mm-hmm. But if you do need to talk to a player to take care of an issue, talk directly to the player outside of the game. None of this discussion should be happening during the game, like at the table. That's the worst thing you can do is start up an argument while, everybody is taking time out of their day to play D&D.
Yeah, there might be a situation where it would escalate very quickly at the table.
I suppose that's true.
But yeah, try to keep it from going that way.
If that happens, I would say everybody involved has made a mistake somewhere along the line.
Right.
So yeah, like talk directly to the player. Maybe send them a text or an email or something. Maybe just take them aside before the game or after the game.
Sure.
Make sure that you get their side as well. It might be that like they have an issue with what the group has already been doing and maybe they just haven't brought it up yet. If there's problems on both sides, then you've got a slightly more complex thing to solve, but you want to make sure that you're solving the actual problem and not just like a symptom of the problem.
Right. And you don't want to be kicking somebody out for something that's not necessarily his or her fault.
Definitely. And when it does come time to kick somebody out of the group, that should be last resort. Yeah. Absolute last resort. If you can get through the game without kicking somebody out, you're better off for it. So if just talking to the player doesn't really resolve the issue, find out from the other people in the group, mainly like the people who brought it to your attention, find out if it's a deal breaker. It might be something that they're willing to deal with. Maybe there's ways that, you can compensate, everybody else can compensate. If there's a way for everybody to, pitch in and try to get through the problem that way, that's probably the best way to deal with it.
Yeah.
If it is a deal breaker, if there's really no option other than to just get rid of the player, the best thing to do is to just rip that Band-Aid off. Just say to the player, there's some issues in the group. I don't know if we can resolve this. We've tried to resolve this and it's just not happening. I think you're just not a good fit for the group.
Right. This,
of course, can be very difficult if this is a friend of yours.
Right. And, and it's like, if it's somebody who's not a friend, it might be a little bit easier because it's, it might be somebody you met at a game shop or something like that. And in that case, it could be just like, hey, sorry, you're just not a fit for our group. And like, no hard feelings. Just, I'll see you around.
Right.
If it's a friend, at the very least, they're a friend. You should be able to talk to them a little bit easier and be able to figure it out. And if it is just something that they can't get around, then hopefully they'll understand like if they are your friend, they at least, you at least have some sort of understanding there. So
yeah. See, I feel like it's kind of it's like a double-edged sword. On one hand, it's easy to talk to your friends because they're your friends, but then on the other hand, they're your friends, and it's hard to bring up a difficult topic with your friends.
Yeah.
So, humans as a whole aren't really very good at like really dealing with
other humans.
We're
guess.
Trying. Yeah.
We're trying. Sorry, everybody.
Sorry, aliens out there.
Sorry. Sorry, all other humans.
Yeah. So like absolute last resort, get them, kick them out of your group. And if you do, don't make it personal. Just, be quick and to the point. This is the issue. I don't think there's another solution. You're not a good fit for the group. Hopefully we can try and do something else in the future.
Yeah. And yeah, it definitely last resort. So by that time you've already addressed the issue, brought it up, saying like, hey, maybe we can solve it this way. No, that's not going to work for you. Well, if no other way works, then yeah, we really should just part ways.
Yeah.
I like the only examples I can think of is just like is somebody who comes to the table late or like gets distracted a lot, that sort of things. And that could just be as easy as like maybe they're just maybe their personal life is a little bit hectic at the time or something like that. And they'll just, maybe that's just a bad week for them.
Right. So
and that's all it is.
Try to be understanding.
Yeah.
They've got a life and all their own issues. So, so try to, just try to be understanding with everybody, no matter what you're doing. Understand these are all people. Everybody is making an effort.
Yeah.
Whether it may seem like it or not, everybody is. So, these are people. These are hopefully your friends. The last thing you want to do is like make a spectacle out of it.
Yeah.
You don't want to go and like tell the whole rest of the group, oh, well, he's, this is his issue and he won't fix it and so on. No. Like if you ever have to say anything in front of the rest of the group, just do like a quick one thing. There was a player I played with a while ago who unfortunately had this issue. He had a problem with fudging dice rolls. And that really bothered me. Like that really takes the fun out of the game for me, fudging dice rolls. Cause I feel like, the whole point of this game is to, the dice are the decider of a lot of things. And
yeah, it's a game of chance in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And so like,
it does make it fun in some ways, frustrating in others, but
right. Feeling like another player isn't playing the same game as me and is forcing me to not play the game I want to play. That's an issue for me. I didn't talk to that player about it. I talked to the DM about it, which looking back, this was a long time ago. That was a faux pas of mine, but the DM had noticed it too. So what he did was at the next session, when everybody got there, he just said to the player, look, we know you've been fudging dice rolls, cut it out. And then we never had an issue with that player anymore.
Yeah.
That was not a problem.
So sometimes just bring it up and be like, hey, this is a problem. You mind doing something about it. They might just be like, all right, fine.
Yeah.
So it could sometimes be that easy.
Yeah. So just try, if you can, try to put yourself in the problem player's shoes. Mm-hmm. Maybe they have a reason for what they're doing. Even if they don't, I guarantee you that they are not seeing the situation the same way you are. Mm-hmm. So just try to keep that in mind. Remember, these are people. They're your friends. Just be nice. Yeah. Be nice and understanding to everybody.
Yeah. Be tactful. Like we've been saying. Yeah. Just don't make a big spectacle out of it, that sort of thing. Because this is definitely interparty conflict. Ding ding. Sorry, but try not to make it interparty drama.
Ooh, that would make a good spin-off of our podcast.
interparty drama.
Interparty drama.
It's just stories about just all the problem players that people have to deal with.
I mean, to be honest, I would listen to that.
I know.
All right, maybe I'll cut this out in case we want to do that in the future.
Interparty drama.
Anyway. All right. I think we've covered that one. So
that should be good,
just be understanding.
Yeah. Our next question comes from Nicholas P. Through email, and he asks, "Have you ever tried integrating monsters, items, etc. from games, TV series, or movies?"
I think pretty much everybody can say yes to this question.
That's like a lot of the interest in things like D&D is like you want to be part of a fantasy world, and you usually get into that through reading a book or seeing a movie or watching television or a video game or something. I think this is an easy one, really.
Yes, definitely. One thing off the top of my head, I know I've done it. I'm sure a lot of people have done it. Tried to make a lightsaber in D&D. There was a campaign that I was playing where it was one of those groups where we like switch up DMing completely independently of one another. Myself and one of the DMs both each gave a player a lightsaber, but we each did it a different way.
Okay.
I really don't remember how either of them were, but like I gave my friend Nick a lightsaber, but it was a dark lightsaber.
Oh.
And then it was Chris and Jay. Chris was another one of the DMs. Chris gave Jay a lightsaber, but his was like a good lightsaber. This was not planned in any way. It just happened. Like I don't even think Chris knew that I had given Nick a lightsaber. Like I think I did it in like one of the days that not everybody showed up, so I was just doing like a little solo thing with Nick.
Gotcha.
And then like next session, Jay was doing something, and Chris was like, "Oh, and here you go." And like mechanic wise, I remember we each did it completely differently. I think mine might have even like cost hit points to activate or something. Because I wanted it to be like, because anybody who tries to put a lightsaber in their game, they're gonna try to make it the most powerful weapon in the world. Because everybody that likes lightsabers, they love lightsabers.
Right.
Everybody, like there was in this Facebook group I'm in, somebody was like, "Hey, how would you make a lightsaber in D&D?" And people were like, "Oh, it would do 3d12 damage with a 17 to 20 times 3 critical." And it's like, dude, why not, make it kill everything in one hit and let you cast wish at will or something. Like,
yeah.
Hopefully you're trying to make this a little bit reasonable within your game.
I think that's part of the fun, actually, is like trying to fit something in without it just being so off the wall.
Yeah.
But yeah, something like a lightsaber. It's like, well, it's made of light, so it's like burning. So it might do some fire damage, maybe technically. But then somebody be like, no, but it's not fire. It's light energy. Let's not get into that. Hold on.
When Chris did, I think the one he gave Jay was force damage, which I would say is probably the best analog.
Is it like the Force?
Yes.
Like the Jedis use the Force damage. It's not Force damage. It's the Force damage.
I think what's most sad is that that didn't even occur to me until you just said that. So good job, Jeff. Okay. In many ways, that is the best analog for a lightsaber.
But it's a weapon with really high damage reduction, basically.
Yeah, or it
cut through anything.
Bypasses really high damage reduction. Yeah,
that's what I meant. Yeah, it gets through that. A few things I can think of. I just remember earlier on, because I think the first time I was getting into D&D, I was also playing Final Fantasy VII. So like anything Buster Swords, materia, things like that. I remember like trying to make some sort of materia thing that like could store spells, so it was it worked like materia in Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, I think materia would probably be one of the easier things to adapt.
I think there are some things that are very similar in mechanics to materia, and like it might not be as available as in the Final Fantasy VII world,
right?
Which I can't remember if that world had a name.
Well, if you go by the speculation from Final Fantasy X-2, the world is called Spira because theoretically Final Fantasy VII takes place in the same world as Final Fantasy X just many, many, many years later.
Really?
There's a character in Final Fantasy X named Shinra, and in X-2, apparently he finds some way to draw energy out of the planet.
Okay.
And so the implication then is that many, many years down the line, there is a company named after him that does exactly that.
Interesting. Wait, so
Never mind.
7 is further in the future?
Apparently, yeah.
So it's after the fall of Sin. Spoilers.
Yes, it is after Yuna's Calm.
It's after Yuna's Calm, which is very interesting. Sorry, this is a big tangent.
No, it's cool.
But
I can cut it out if I have to.
That's very interesting because it's it was like machines and stuff. Everybody was like against machines.
Yeah.
Gosh, I can't remember it now. Now I want to go and play those games.
Don't get me started on Final Fantasy X,
oh,
because I will rant for so long about my issues with the main character of Final Fantasy X.
Oh, well, yeah. His old man.
Okay, you guys couldn't see this, but Jeff was doing a gesture with his hand that was hilarious.
It's Titus or Titus, however you want to say it. He always does like the scratching the back of the head, but because it was early PlayStation 2 era, I believe.
He's not touching his head.
Touching his head because otherwise he'd clip through himself. So they just kind of had him wave his hand behind his head. So we'll do that sometime.
Yes. Well, I'll just say, because a lot of people have issues with the main character of that game. My issues are not issues I have seen anywhere else. I have very deep-seated issues with the way that character was written. It's not just, oh, he's childish or, oh, he's annoying. He is both of those things, but my issue is much, much more serious than that.
It's not he's terrible. He is, but it's not it.
Whoever wrote him to be a hero does not know how to write a real world hero. They know how to write a fairy tale hero.
Yeah.
His entire character arc shows that the ends always justifies the means. And that is a terrible, terrible message for your hero to be putting forth.
All right. So
sorry.
So don't play a character base off of Titus with
right.
When in an adventure.
And I mean, I love Final Fantasy X is a great game mechanically.
Yeah.
One of my favorite games of all time. I've gotten all of the celestial weapons in that game on 3 separate platforms. Yeah. So I know what I'm doing in that game.
Yeah, didn't you just recently
a good game.
Finish off all the stuff for the Steam version?
Yeah, a couple months ago.
Yeah, this guy can dodge lightning like nobody I know.
I like to say I am not good at video games. I am just very, very stubborn.
Very patient.
Very patient and very stubborn.
Very patient. I know a die that you would like.
Thank you, Jeff.
I'm sorry, a cube.
That's a deep cut for anybody who listens to InterPartyConflict, in particular this episode.
Okay. Oh yeah, one other example I wanted to make for this question that we've gotten off on.
Yeah.
One of my favorite shows was Full Metal Alchemist. Yep. And I always wanted to make a character based on like the alchemy from that show.
Sure.
And there's a lot of spectacular things that they could do, but for the most part, like a lot of the stuff they do is on a grand scale, but it's still mundane. So it's turning a material into a finished product, but in an instant sort of thing.
Yeah.
So like I was trying to find ways to get a character to have the fabricate spell, which is basically just that. It's like you have the materials, and like within a certain amount of time and space, you can turn those materials into something. So if you had enough wood, stone, and things like that, and you were able to cast a spell enough times or at a high enough level, you could basically turn that wood and stone into a house in the matter of a day.
That's pretty cool.
So something like that. And in combat and stuff, that wouldn't necessarily especially fabricate, because I think it's like a 5-10 minute casting time or something.
Yeah.
But like in a lot of cases, it's like, okay, well, we need to get across this crack in this pit. Like, okay, well, there's some shattered wood over here. I'll just fabricate it into a bridge or something.
Oh yeah.
Little things like that. So I thought we need. And then there was a prestige class I remember looking at. I can't remember the name of it, but it was in the Dragon Compendium, and it had similar sort of abilities that an alchemist from the show would have. But that's probably a big one for me.
Okay, I remember I had an artificer in an Eberron campaign, and I made a Green Lantern ring.
Oh.
It was a ring that functioned as both a ring of telekinesis and a ring of the Ram.
Okay.
So I could pick stuff up. I could disarm people. I could grab stuff, pick people up and throw them and whatever using the telekinesis. But then I could also just shoot a blast of just energy at them that would just knock them back.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
I want to say there are some instances where the Green Lantern uses it's like a ram comes up, like a ram's head to bust down a door or something. Yeah.
So I think just about everybody has tried to do this to some extent, because the best way that you can have a way to get into D&D is to just try to do something that you saw in something else, like a book or a TV show or whatever. If I could just provide one word of warning, it's that, well, a lot of people, when they do this, they always they imagine the thing that they're recreating as being super duper powerful. And that doesn't necessarily make for a balanced game. You know, you can want to have a lightsaber, but if you expect the lightsaber to kill everything in one hit and let you be immune to ranged weapons because you can deflect it or whatever, you know, don't expect to actually have that in the game, because that's way more powerful than the game is meant to have. So
yeah, because you have this expectation of it because you've seen it used in perfect situations,
right?
Because that's what the movie or book or whatever put it in. But yeah, like I can remember another thing. I tried making Spider-Man.
Of course,
I tried to make I had like a monk. He was a monk scion, and he had ropes of climbing that would come out of like gloves of holding or something.
Yeah.
And like he'd be able to shoot web and fly around. And then like I gave him a ridiculous item that gave him like plus 30 to jump or something ridiculous. And it was just like, but that was more just us going crazy with character creation than anything else, which that could just be fun by itself, honestly. I think of character concepts all the time just when I'm driving. Yeah. It's just like I'm like, that'd be neat, you know. All right. Well,
so I think everybody does that, and it's a lot of fun. So do it.
Have fun with it, and you know, it's nice to think of these things as like these really cool, powerful things, but it can be fun trying to balance them within the world that you're putting them in. Yeah, like I feel like creating something with limitations forces you to be really creative.
Definitely,
like, you know, because like you have to kind of find ways to like make it work with the limitations that you're given. Yeah. All right, so let's move on to the next here.
And this one, we actually have two questions that kind of tie into each other.
Right. And in a way, we've kind of touched on them in a little bit in other ways. So the first part comes from Cobalt Cleaver, and this is from Paizo. How do you handle an imbalance when one player loves role-playing and hamming it up and the other does not? Second question is, how to spread spotlight across every player instead of having one strong player personality that dominates it. So yeah, like this is basically, you know, somebody who is just very outgoing and social, or at the very least just really lets themselves go in a D&D situation, you know, versus somebody who's a little bit shy or you know, isn't getting quite as involved.
Now, I would say, if you're the DM, it boils down to this. Whether someone is hamming it up and trying to hog the spotlight or whatever, try as hard as you can to give everyone the same amount of time. Mm-hmm. You know, I understand that they're putting in a lot of work to you know, make their character interesting and so on, but it's your job to give everybody the same amount of time, same amount of opportunity to be in the spotlight. You don't want to let one player just kind of run away with the game. That being said, I think you should reward the behavior that you want. So if there is one person that is putting in a lot of work to make their character involved, you should reward that. You know, ideally, that would make other players that are less involved think, oh, well, you know, if I want to get those rewards too, if I want, you know, an entire adventure based around my character, maybe I should, you know, do more work role-playing too. Mm-hmm. But that's hard to do because you run the risk of those other players thinking, oh, well, he's just playing favorites.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You don't want it to get to the point where, you feel like they're even more left out.
Yeah. Because, yeah. You don't want that.
Yeah. And like in that case, it might that sort of thing might not work as well because that person, you might just not be able to get them to break out of their shell, basically.
Yeah. That can be hard.
You know, and that's just their personality, and that's just how they go about things. And so sometimes you don't want to push it too hard, otherwise you end up alienating them even more.
Right.
And in that case, you can try to find other ways to get them involved a little less directly. Like it's a little bit more work on the DM's part, but I mean, you know, you want to try to make sure everybody has fun. It's, you know, a little bit more work, but you know, trying to get their character involved in the story that isn't necessarily based on the role playing that they're doing. So yeah, it could even just be like if that person, because they're, you know, quiet type, they might have a character that is basically the strong quiet type. You know, somebody who's less social, just about the action. You could start bringing up things like have NPCs bring up, you know, stories that they've heard about that character. You know, just little things like that, or like something as simple as a wanted poster. Ooh. You know, something like that where it's just like, okay, like, yeah, your character is part of the story. Like, and in that way, they'll feel good about it. To be like, yeah, I'm making a difference, you know, even though I'm not really doing all the role playing like my buddy is. am at least still in the game making a difference.
Right.
So like, finding different ways to get them involved that won't necessarily, be forcing them to be more social than they feel comfortable doing.
I would say if you can, try to kind of pair up the different player types, like the people that ham it up and the people that don't, to try and get them to play off of each other. I know that personally, I'm not the greatest role player in the world, but every time I play with a group of people that are really good role players, being forced to work with them makes me better at it myself. Yeah. So like I never role played until I played with a group that was all about role playing. And then because they would be, incorporating me into what they were doing, then that forced me to, just kind of follow their lead.
And that won't be necessarily perfect in some situations. Cause like, I feel like there are some people who are really good at like role playing and handling it up. And then, and other people who are like good in all social situations where they would be able to be like, take somebody under their wing sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like, definitely like pairing them up with somebody who is going to be more willing to help them. Cause I feel like if you pair them up with somebody who loves to dominate, then that might backfire more.
That's a good point. I didn't even think of that.
But still like basically having somebody for them to like, pair up with and like somebody that can help encourage them a little bit more. That would definitely help.
I think that'll pretty much cover it. Just try as the DM, try to give everybody the same amount of spotlight. There are some people that are okay with not really role playing much. There are some people that they're still having a good time, even though they're not the center of attention all the time.
Right. I'm that way in a lot of ways. I like, for the most part, I'm fairly quiet. I'm a fairly quiet player, but I still have a good time with it.
Yeah.
I try to chime in when I can, when I feel like it's my moment.
Yeah.
But
I would say if you are concerned that one player is getting kind of overshadowed, just check with them after the game or before the game and say, hey, how do you feel about this? Do you want me to work more with your character and so on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Another communication is key.
Absolutely.
Our next question, the second question from our last pair came from Zeus and his beard. I forgot to mention that.
It's all right.
He's a good contributor.
Yeah, he gave us a bunch of questions.
Yeah. Another question from Zeus and his beard. This comes from Reddit as well. How to make your story more open-worldy, sandboxy, and how to avoid railroading your campaign.
Okay, so two things that I want to say about railroading.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, every DM railroads.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah.
When you make a game, you are going to prepare something.
Mm-hmm.
If the players don't really want to do that, well, I mean, you can improvise whatever it is they're doing, but you're naturally going to try and find a way to incorporate what you did prepare into what the players are doing. Now, the hallmark of how good your DM is how much you notice the railroading.
Mm-hmm.
There might be a time where he plans out a dungeon or something and he thinks the players are going to go to that dungeon, and instead they say, oh, we want to go do this other dungeon instead. Well, on some level, he might say, okay, and then just use the dungeon he had planned in place of the dungeon that they go to.
Right.
Now, I mean, that's not a very subtle example, but that kind of thing is just kind of what you do as a DM because, like I said, you have to prepare something.
Right.
Unless you are just the world's greatest improviser, able to, create a dungeon and a story and a city off the top of your head in an instant, maybe then you won't ever railroad. But it happens with everybody.
Or if you're just like, you spend so much time like planning contingencies and stuff like that. You basically just have a list of things. That
I guess,
yeah. For.
Then there's the question of, well, what exactly do you consider railroading and so on and so on. But
sure.
The second thing about railroading is that railroading is only a problem if the players aren't interested in where the track is taking them.
Mm-hmm.
We talked last week about pre-written adventures or not pre-written adventures, but like a full campaign, like a single plot line campaign. You're railroading when you do that. When you are having the players go through a specific set of adventures in order, you are railroading. You probably aren't going to consider it railroading because the players want to be doing exactly that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a matter of how how good you are at getting your characters invested in what's happening and getting your characters interested in what's happening. You plan all this stuff. If they don't want to do that and you force them to do it anyway, well, that's going to seem like railroading. If you prepare all this stuff and you're like, okay, guys, let me tell you about all this cool stuff. And then they're like, oh man, let's do that. You've just railroaded them, but you did it in such a way that doesn't make them feel like they're being railroaded. Mm-hmm. So railroading is not inherently bad. If it was, then no pre-written adventure would be good, because that's all they are. They are a pre-written thing that you are trying to get the players to go through.
Yeah, it's kind of hard. Yeah, it's kind of hard to go off the the little sidebars on different NPCs. It's like, okay, well, let's go on an adventure with this person. It's like, well, they only wrote like 2 sentences about this person's backstory, so I can't really do anything with that.
Yeah. So, that being said, you should always try to give your players options when you're the DM. A true open world or true sandbox campaign, I think, if it's possible, it's incredibly difficult to do. And I would even venture to say that most players wouldn't enjoy that. They may think they would. They may think, oh man, I want all these choices. But every time I run a campaign and I'm like, okay, guys, here's the campaign world. You tell me what you want to do. At best, I'll get one player being like, oh, I want to get this magic item that I already knew that I wanted. And then I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'll come up with an adventure for you to get that. So it's a lot of work from everybody involved to make something more sandboxy. So you shouldn't necessarily want your game to be 100% open world. There has to be some kind of, through line. There's something that you as a DM have planned, but it is important, like I said, to give your players options.
Yeah.
One thing, I was in a group a while ago. We really only played for maybe 4 or 5 sessions, but it always felt like it was very open world. And I talked to the DM afterwards and I asked him, how did you make it feel like that? And the way he did it, he told me this little secret. He said every time he plans a session, he makes sure that at any given time, the players have 3 possible ways to go, 3 directions they can go. And that might be like in a dungeon, there's 3 different hallways. It might be that in town, there's 3 different quests that they can find out about. Mm-hmm. And then that way, the players feel like they have options. But he only has to he can plan those 3 options. He can flesh out those 3 options as much or as little as he wants until the players bite down on one of them. Mm-hmm. Then once the players are like, ooh, that first option, that sounded really cool. Let's do that next session. And then next session, he just has to plan out that one. And then, of course, come up with 3 more options for the players to do after that.
Well, I feel like the unused ones he can always bring back up, or at the very least the ones that if they're kind of like teetering between A and B, and they say no, screw C, but A and B sound pretty good. Let's do B, and then he can be like, okay, well A's still up on the table.
Yeah. So you can give your characters a few options, and then you can still have it limited enough that you can plan out everything that you want to do in good enough detail.
Yeah, you could still, just make sure that each one of those options has like a similar hook at the end that gets them to go the way that you want them to go later on. My personal experience as a player, I feel like I'm there to get railroaded in a way.
Yeah.
Sounds kind of dirty. Sorry.
It's not that kind of podcast.
Sorry. But yeah, I feel like I'm there to go on an adventure. And I'm there to, not necessarily be taken on a tour, but at the very least, to be guided in a way.
Yeah.
I'm there to lose myself in a game. So having too many options will take me out of the game, basically.
Yeah.
Cause I'll be trying to think of too many different things I can do. Cause, I can go over my wishes and wants for, video games that I play and stuff like that. Like I would love a fully sandbox space simulator game, but where there's just an unlimited possibility of things you can do. But that's just sort of exhausting.
That's really cool in concept.
Yes.
But then if you were actually sitting at the table, I feel like you'd be like, okay, well now what do I do?
Yeah. And there have been characters that I've built around the idea of having these freedoms and things like that. Like the character that I mentioned earlier who could do alchemy stuff. It's
Mm-hmm.
okay, yeah, that's some neat stuff, but there's a lot you can do with it. But really, how is it going to really come up in in an adventure. Like, otherwise I'm just like basically playing The Sims, at a table with a bunch of my friends who are like wanting to do something else. So like, and that's the other thing. Everyone gets, if everyone has the freedom to choose exactly what they want to do, how many of those people are going to want to do the same thing?
That's a good point.
Yeah. So when you give them 3 options, or or give them no options, really, they're just going to do it.
Like, let me do a little test. Okay, Jeff, we're going to go out to eat. Where do you want to go?
I don't know.
Okay. Or instead, hey, Jeff, we can go to either KFC or McDonald's. Where do you want to go?
McDonald's. I had KFC the other week. So.
There you go.
That's a really good example of choosing where you want to go out to eat.
Yes.
It's like and then again, not everybody's going to want to go to the same place. So it's like, all right, how about KFC? And they're like, no, I don't want to go to KFC. And so you're like, all right, fine, we won't go to KFC. McDonald's, and somebody's like, nah, I don't like their fries. So it's like, okay, well, fine.
But instead, if you just tell people, okay, we're going to McDonald's, then they'll be like, okay, I'll find something that I want there.
And it's even at the point where, like, because the DM is doing most of the work, it's kind of like, hey, I'm buying you guys McDonald's. Who's gonna say no to that?
That's a very good way to look at it. There you go. Well, good job. I think on that note, I think we've pretty much covered this. Did you have anything else you want to say?
Well, I was going to say we are not sponsored by McDonald's. Or KFC.
Okay. Oh man, if we were, man. So I think that will do it for today.
Okay.
So once again, I want to mention the podcast I talked about earlier, Hardy Dice Friends, our rivals. Giving that clenched arm thumbs up.
It's like a shaking fist of anger, but the thumb is extended.
Yes.
Like good job, you guys.
There you go. And then also Dicey Tales. Check out both of them if you can. If anybody would like to submit items or questions, please email us at interpartyconflict@gmail.com. For show notes, a running list of questions asked, and important links, or if you want to download the episode, go to interpartyconflict.blogspot.com, and there will be a link to our SoundCloud on there as well. You can probably search for us on SoundCloud. You can check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/interpartyconflict, or our subreddit at reddit.com/r/interpartyconflict. On there, I like to put weekly discussion questions. If anyone wants to discuss the episode or anything else about the podcast, you can do it there. You can find us on Twitter at InPartyConflict. We're also on iTunes and Stitcher. Please rate, review, and subscribe. We really appreciate it. And our intro and outro music is Inspiration by Boxcat Games from Nameless the Hacker's RPG. So I think that will do it for today. I have been Gabe.
And I'm Jeff.
And thank you for joining us.
Bye, everybody.